So thank you very much indeed, everybody. It's a real honor to be here. It's such a fantastic state of India. It's clearly a very dynamic state that's prioritizing education in a really positive way. So the 2012-13 World University Rankings were published on the 3rd of October. It was a huge undertaking. 50 million citations to 6 million research papers analyzed over 5 years. We collected more than 100,000 data points on around 700 universities. We've gathered the opinion of 50,000 experienced academics from all over the world in our reputation surveys. So some exciting results to discuss with you today. There's been some real compelling evidence of shifting sands in higher education. But first, let me very briefly tell you about Times Higher Education magazine, if we can get the AV to work. It's going to be a struggle to press on without my slides, but I'll try to do my best. So apologies, everyone, for that. Times Higher Education magazine was founded in 1970. But we're not just a weekly magazine, we're a vibrant website now. We have around 200,000 unique visitors every month to the site. When we published the World University Rankings in October, we had more than 2 million visits in just 24 hours. And I'm pleased to say the interest in higher education and excellence in India is so large that India now represents our 4th largest audience for the rankings. So the magazine is a great way for universities to engage with the global academic dialogue, so please do engage with us. We'd like to hear from you. Our parent company is TSL Education. Our sister magazine is the Times Educational Supplement. It's more than 100 years old. We have a long pedigree of providing trusted, reliable information to educational professionals for well over a century now. And as experts in higher education, I think it's really important to stress that we do know that universities are too complex and they do far too many multifaceted, exciting things that can't be adequately measured for the purposes of a world ranking. We recognize that. So the question, why do we rank at all? Well, it's a shame you can't see the slides. Does anyone know the numbers? But there's 4 million internationally mobile students. That's predicted to rise to up to 7 million by 2020. More than 200 branch campuses. More than 40% of research papers published by the world's top 200 universities are internationally co-authored. There's a report from the IHEP think tank in Washington, D.C. that said that rankings are actually providing a really helpful function. They're fostering collaboration, such as research partnerships and student and faculty exchange programs. They're also encouraging institutions to move beyond their internal conversations to participate in broader national and international discussions. We also know that rankings are heavily influential with students. A research project by IDP, the student recruitment agents, found that the reputation and ranking of a university was the single most important factor in helping international students determine where to study. 33% of respondents to their survey named rankings as the number one priority when they're choosing an institution, above tuition fees, above location. It's the pedigree of the university that matters. And of course, we're also seeing rankings growing in influence beyond the student. They're helping faculty make career decisions. They're helping university leaders to set strategic priorities. They're helping industry to find strategic partners for R&D. And they're also increasingly helping government shape national higher education policy. We've seen in India, the UGC is talking about using the Times Higher Education World University Rankings to set partnerships with international universities. They're used in Russia, they're used in Brazil to set scholarships. And I think it's really important to stress that rankings, of course, of world-class research institutions favor the developed world. They favor the rich world. The US and UK, for example, do exceptionally well. But they're a very good way of highlighting change. They're highlighting improvements. The developing world can use rankings to show their improvement, and institutions rising up the rankings can really use them to enhance their position, enhance their partnerships. So huge weight is placed on rankings. So So it's crucial for us to produce a ranking that can bear the weight placed on it. Times Higher Education has been publishing a ranking since 2004. Between 2004 and 2009, we published what was known as the Times Higher Education QS World University Ranking. But in 2009, we decided to end our partnership with QS. As we'd watched the role and influence of rankings grow, and we saw how much weight was being placed on them, we felt conscious of some of the criticism of rankings. We needed to improve what we were doing. My editor at the time, Anne Mroz, said, "We feel we have a duty to improve how we compile the rankings. The responsibility weighs heavily on our shoulders. We're very much aware that national policies, multi-million-pound decisions are influenced by rankings. Universities deserve a rigorous and robust set of rankings." So in November 2009, we signed a deal with Thomson Reuters, one of the world's leading data specialists. We developed a new brand, the Times Higher Education World University Rankings, powered by Thomson Reuters. It's a perfect partnership. Times Higher Education has 40 years' experience in this field. Thomson Reuters has unparalleled expertise in research evaluation. So the first thing we did under the new partnership, we had to look at what was wrong with the ranking that we had been producing. We convened a meeting of our executive board, and we had an open dialogue about the weaknesses of existing ranking systems. There were 3 major flaws identified with the QS system. One, the citations data wasn't normalized. It didn't take account of dramatic variations in subject, the volume of citations. You need to normalize your subject information. We felt that staff-student ratios were a weak proxy for excellence in teaching. You can't tell how good the food is in a restaurant by the number of staff that are serving you, and it was given to you harder data to help institutions make informed choices. And we think we were justified in making the change. But it's easy to find out what was wrong with rankings. We had to look at what the fundamental principles were. We had to go back to basics and establish what is a world-class university. It's important to stress that there is no single model of excellence. We're looking at world-class, research-driven universities, the type of universities that want to be compared globally. Fantastic institutions like Toronto, who would compare themselves to Harvard or Cambridge or Melbourne in Australia. We use metrics that measure that performance. Different institutions have excellence in different ways. They have different missions, and that would require different methodology. So I think it's important to stress that we're looking at a certain type. And in establishing that, we needed to look at the core pillars of what we want to measure. We want to measure teaching. We want to measure knowledge transfer. We want to measure global outlook. And we want to measure research. So we had a consultation with the community. We carried out a survey. We asked the community, which indicators do you want to see? Which indicators do you value? Which indicators do you not value? And we had some clear feedback. Had there been any visuals, I would be showing you now the methodology of the rankings. I'll try and describe it to you. We use 13 separate performance indicators to measure all these core aspects of a university. We have 30% dedicated to 5 indicators of what we call the teaching environment. That's not teaching quality, it's the teaching environment. We've reduced the weighting given to subjective reputation surveys, but we've put a lot of time and effort into getting the methodology of those surveys right. And I'll try and briefly talk about the results. Without having the slides, it's going to be very, very difficult for me, and without having much time left. But I think the key thing to say is, yes, the rankings are absolutely dominated by the US and UK. The US takes 7 of the top 10 places. The UK takes the other 3. There is an element there where some of the indicators used, journal indexes, for example, citations, they're English language dominated, or Western construct. But we're seeing signs of change. 3 Indian institutions made the world top 400 list: IIT Kharagpur, IIT Bombay, IIT Roorkee. There's a key issue for India. I think we need more engagement with your institutions. We need more data from you so we can help understand the Indian system. It's very significant that the only 3 that made the top 400 are IITs, highly prestigious. We assume and we'd like to see the general universities, the comprehensive universities, rising up these tables as well in due course. I was going to show you some detailed data breakdowns for Indian institutions, looking at their individual performance against a range of metrics. Again, I'm sorry there's no AV, but I would point out that consistently across the 3 universities ranked from India in the world rankings, they all show a very high level of knowledge transfer, high volume of income from the industry, which is a fantastic asset. It is worth noting that these are all IITs. But relatively, compared to a global stage, low levels of internationalization. We see low recruitment of international students, low recruitment of international staff, and a low level, relatively, of internationally collaborative research. I think that's very important. Internationally collaborative research tends to be more highly cited. I think it's the key to the kind of knowledge economy that we were hearing about this morning. And this sort of conference is perfect for helping to facilitate this research collaboration. I think that is core to the development of Indian universities. And again, I'm sorry, but without the visuals, it's going to be very hard for me, but luckily we're running out of time anyway. But I just wanted to conclude by saying the key story for me of the world rankings wasn't the huge volume of American universities that make the top 200. It wasn't the high number of UK universities that make the top 200. It was the rise of Asia. Far fewer institutions from Asia are in the rankings, but consistently they're rising up the tables. So China, Singapore, Hong Kong, Korea in particular. So East Asia is an incredible rise. Australia is doing very, very well. But consistently the US, collectively, their institutions were slipping. There was a collective fall of 6 places for the whole of the US institutions and on average. The UK, the collective fall was similar, almost 8 places. So what we're seeing is the Asian century coming true. There's an Asian renaissance. The investment that's being put in East Asia is paying off. We're seeing huge change. It will take much time, but we're seeing hard evidence of this change. Now, the challenge for India, I think, is will you be part of this movement? Can you capitalize on the strengths, emerging strengths and investment of your neighbors, and where should you be undertaking strategic partnership? So I think in the absence of the visuals, I'll just conclude there and say thank you very much for your attention, and I'm around for the next few days, so very happy to engage in dialogue and conversation with you all. So thank you very much.